Good morning, everyone. It's Joe Pochodyniak here with McNichol and Associates Asset Management. We're just doing, Ken Reed and I, a quick podcast here as to the advantages of an RESP. RESPs stand for Registered Education Savings Plans. It's a long-term investment and savings plan specifically designed to help people save for a child's education after high school. That can be a trades program, a polytechnical type of program, obviously college and university as well, but also apprenticeship programs. I don't know if many of you know all that in terms of the advantages. And adults can actually open up RESPs for themselves for other planning techniques, which we won't get into here. One of the main advantages, and we'll get into a case study and some specific details in a moment, but the main advantage is that you can actually extract some money back from our good old government to help out with the education planning, and that's really done through the promoter of the RESP. They can apply through you, and we can obviously help you with that. Apply for benefits such as the Canada Learning Bond and the Canadian Education Savings Grant. And so if the child is eligible, these benefits will be received within the RESP, and it's a really good way to, again, I don't think, given the cost of some of these degree programs nowadays in particular, I've got two nephews in university, and it's not far short from, two and a half times what I paid when I went to the University of Toronto. So let's kind of get going here. Our disclaimer per usual, we're not providing direct tax or investment or legal advice here today. And the reason for that is this is sort of just a general interest podcast, and we are required to do a little due diligence into yourselves if you want specific advice, which we've been doing for over 2 decades. So check us out at mcnicholasset.com or book a meeting to come in and see us at 130 Bloor Street. I'm Joe Pochodyniak. I'm a portfolio manager. My daytime job is the manager of the Alternative Asset Trust, but I've been in the industry for over 2 decades, and I've got a couple of RESP beneficiaries myself, and again, as well, some active university people in the family as well. So I am familiar, certainly with the eligible expenses under an RESP, things like tuition, obviously books, tools, transportation, and rent. Those can also be used against the RESP. So it's not just tuition. So let's just sort of talk about the basics. We really want to hit the high points and just leave this quick podcast with yourselves. We are coming up on August here, and so a lot of people are going to be university bound soon. In fact, one of my nephews is actually going to be relocating to Waterloo. He is going to be attending Wilfrid Laurier University, and that's actually him right there. So in terms of the RESP, from a basic perspective, it's a tax deferred or tax sheltered plan. So monies that you put in, you don't pay taxes on them, so that's kind of nice. You get that tax deferred growth, and it's really designed to help you save for your child's post-secondary education. There are, again, other strategies that you can use in terms of the RSP, but the main idea is really paying for education. The contributions are not tax deductible, so unlike your personal RRSP, you don't get a tax deduction here, and that would really be when you think about it, double dipping the system, because again, there are these grants, the CLB and the CESG, that kind of are the teaser, if you will, to open one of these plans. So you don't get to deduct this against your own personal income. Again, tax-free growth. You are taxed on the withdrawals, and there's some specifics as to how that's done as well. And again, the contributions are eligible for the government programs. And again, the two programs are the Canada Education Savings Grant, the CESG, which most people who have RESPs or who have children might know about, but there's also the Canada Learning Bond that you can look into as well. And again, not just university, trades are big. There's certainly an undersupply in our country of people that can swing a hammer and that sort of thing. So there's trades, there's colleges and apprenticeship programs. So you don't just need to get going on university. Um, we just want to move forward here and talk about some parameters, some goalposts, effectively, because although these plans are very, very good for the intended use, there's some rules and regulations around it. So it used to be that it was per beneficiary, per child, if you will. Now there's a $50,000 lifetime contribution limit. But the way I think it's optimized is to really do it at about the rate of $2,500 per year to get that 20% top up by the government. So obviously youth is great in this case, but the lifetime sizing of that CESG benefit per beneficiary, just over $7,000. So I think the messaging is here is, if you have somebody that you think might be going to advance their education past high school, you really need to get on these if you haven't already, because the earlier you get started on this, not only do you get the compounding of tax deferred growth, you get to maximally, I don't want to say exploit, but harness the value of what the government will give to you. In 2023, there were a couple of changes that the government have made. This might not be applicable to everyone viewing the podcast today. Former spouses and common law partners who are still the legal, let's call it parents or guardians of the child, may now open or transfer a joint RESP, that is to say, post divorce or separation, and an increase from the EAP, the Educational Assistance Program, from $5,000 to $8,000 on the first 13 weeks of study has been also implemented, and that's for qualifying educational programs. And again, just make sure you really double check that there's a wide range of programs that do qualify, but some that don't. And so again, you just want to approach this with some precision, and so we can of course help you with that. There's also been an increase on the limitation of the EAP from $2,500 to $4,000 for specific educational programs, and I would imagine that's related to inflation. So a lot of programs nowadays. When I went to university, where's my degree? I'm not going to say. I'm a little bit worried about that number. Suffice it to say, it was a long time ago. So I did a science degree. It was just textbooks and some minor laboratory equipment that I was on the hook for. But nowadays, some of these programs have more advanced resources that the child or student will need. So just make sure you're getting quality advice on that. Let's take a look at a case study because we want to keep the theory low and the practicality high. So Kelly, actually, we'll change the name here in real time. So Kelly, nothing against Kelly, it's a great name, but we're going to change the name to Grace here. And so Kelly is a 1 year old, which to me is a baby still. And the return we've modeled out here is just under 6%. That's pretty realistic here in the McNichol world. And so what we're looking at is a $200 monthly contribution effective immediately. And so we get going on that. And so what you actually do is if you do the numbers, starting from when Grace is a 1 year old until she's 18. Not to toot my own horn, but I actually got into university when I was 17. Now there's a little bit of cheating going on because I'm a November baby. I'm a Scorpio, obviously the best sign in the calendar. But I got in when I was 17. But if Grace gets in at 18, you're looking at almost $81,000 according to this case study by the time Grace goes off to again college, university, trades, whatever, and that's comprised of contributed capital growth, but also those grants. So over time, again, they can make a real impact. And I find that with government programs and tax, I think a lot of the times, for good reason, people assume that they just get it without having to make specific applications, filings, or elections. That's not always the case. Um, Comparing and contrasting this case study, it's really interesting because and believe me, I know how expensive life can be. Even if you're able to put down $50 a month for Grace on an effective immediately basis, that's still over $20,000 by the time she gets to be 18, and that cuts down on, a lot of loans and that sort of thing. So again, that would be $10,200 in contributed capital, a little over $2,000 in grants, and $8,300 in terms of growth. On the growth side, I just want to give us a little pitch here. It's really the stability of that growth. It's not putting money into these plans and getting that highlight reel investment. You want consistency, which is something that our firm has been offering investors for well over 2 decades, and we're really pleased to do it. So that's kind of where it ends for the formals of the podcast. Maybe Ken, did you just want to open it up with some back and forth here? We can just ask some questions. You actually just, if I'm not mistaken, concluded university a couple of years ago, so congrats on that. Um, any comments or questions?
No, I guess the obvious question for people opening one of these programs up, if you miss a year with the CESG, does it carry forward for the parents? Will their plan receive the grant in the following year?
Yeah, so the $50,000 lifetime limit is the lifetime limit. There's no real constraints around that. You can't put in $50,000 all in one shot and then automatically assume the government's going to top that up with 20% of 50,000, which is $10,000. It doesn't work like that. There are caps on the CSG side of it, and so that's why again, with Grace and with some of the more younger aspiring academics on the call, you can actually start early and maximize it that way. But the CESG for sure has caps on it on an annualized basis. It's only about $2,500.
Okay, that's perfect. I guess my other question, for new parents, grandparents, yada yada yada, opening one of these up, um, can the principal of this, when they're withdrawing it, obviously it's taxed in the student's name, not the parent. Can they openly use it for anything for their educational purposes, or does it have to go to the school? Can they use it to pay their rent or books or whatever?
Yeah, so that's another good question. So the eligibility, of course, number one, tuition and books for sure. You can also use it for residency and any tools or specialized resources you need for the educational program. So the way I like to say it is, um, uh, you know, we advise clients that the tuition side of it and things like books, which are kind of de facto requirements for the program, are automatically eligible. Tools and other resources, those you might want to just double check. For the most part, they are. Any sort of discretionary benefits, going out with your friends on Friday night, and racking up a bill at the local pub, absolutely out of the question. You cannot use those for the plan. And yeah, and the other thing too, and I think I heard you kind of talk about this, was just on the conclusion of the RESP. So any savings that remain in the RESP when it closes will be handled in one of two ways. Monies received from the benefits have to be returned to the government, okay? Because the way you want to think about it is that's a grant that you would essentially have to return. Any personal contributions, okay, to the account will be returned to the person who made them, and very importantly, not taxed. So you don't have to worry that if there's a surplus in the RESP, which is these days unlikely, but using Grace's $200 a month example, that could result in a surplus. And then the accumulated interest or earnings on the benefits and the contribution can be paid to the subscriber and taxed of the RESP, or transferred to an RESP of the subscriber or subscriber's spouse. Okay, so they can also be gifted to a designated educational institution. So there's usually a few more options than the local banker would tell you about, and it's important just to have a dialogue about those. Okay.
Awesome. I think that's it. I guess the only other question I'd have is if a parent wanted to open up a RESP for their child, obviously, could the grandparents or someone else, an uncle and aunt, open up a different plan? Is there a limit on the amount of RESPs a beneficiary
Yeah,
can?
so okay, so that's a good one. So you're essentially asking over contribution, and this is extremely important. So I'm glad you raised it. The opening of the plan, the opening of the accounts, where they are, who's kind of taking the lead on that. That is sort of a more minor consideration. Not that it's unimportant, but the main thing is you cannot over contribute, essentially breach that lifetime $50,000 limit. If you do, that's called an over contribution. And when that occurs, you'll be required to pay a tax, a penalty essentially on the over contribution amount. And it is pricey. It's 1% per month on the amount that you over contribute. So if this is sort of a joint family type of thing, that's fine, right? Mom, dad, grandpa, grandma can contribute to that, but you just want to make sure that someone is tracking this. That's the idea, and yeah, so just be aware of that. And yes, aunts, uncles, that's not the issue. Again, the more financially important issue is the penalties that could be involved if you over contribute.
Okay, awesome. No, I think that's it for my obvious questions about registered education savings plans. So I guess on that note, we can wrap this episode up. Pretty quick episode, but pretty thorough and
Yeah, and
listening.
and and I appreciate Ken, you organizing this per usual. You did a great job. And just before we sign off and wish everyone a great weekend, if you have more questions about this, check us out at mcnickelasset.com. We have an info account. That way you can reach us. And the number for ourselves in Toronto, 416-367-3040. We're always glad to hear from you. So on behalf of Ken Reed and myself, have a great weekend.